I'm sure there are some folks listening, Tim, that say, well, Tim, you have a background in tech, right? You spent
Yeah.
a lot of time in this space, and so you've probably tuned some of your content filtering, the news you consume, whether it's newsletters or things that you go to get some information. And there might be some people that are like, it's awesome that you have these employees at the Fool that you can talk to that work in these spaces. I don't have access to those types of people in my everyday life. Um, are there any sites or forums or aggregators that you could point to and say, this is a really good place if you don't have those people to start getting some of that information?
Yeah, if you're talking about a tech product, let's just say we're talking about tech for a minute here. There are a couple things you could do. Just about every one of these tech companies and tech products, they have some kind of community. So there are things you can look for. Like you can go and join that community, or you can observe it and you can see how active it is. Like if it's stale, like the last message posted was 3 weeks ago, that tells you something. That tells you that it's not that interesting. Whereas, like, if you go to say one of the products that I use that I'm a big consumer of, Airtable. If you go to the Airtable community, which anybody can get into, if you take a look at that, you're going to see a boatload of messages. You're going to see a lot of messages. And what that tells you is that even when those messages are frustrations, like, why can't you do this yet? Another way to frame it, you do this yet, is I love your product. Help me use it more. Right?
Yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
is,
I
go
think,
ahead.
Tim, I think something that can sometimes get lost in the customer feedback loop, or what could sound like criticism, is like, I love you so much and I want you to be even better.
I want you to be better. Yes. Why aren't you solving this problem for me yet? Like, because I use you for so many things and I can envision like 5 other things I could do with your product. Please help me do those things. Like when you see a customer begging for that, and you do see it, like you can go to some of these forums for these tech products and you'll see people saying, hey, when is this coming? When is this coming? That tells you that that company not only has customers who are interested, they have customers who want to buy more, which means they have optionality. So that aspect can be very illuminating.
I'm guessing Zoom is one of those businesses. it's so
It
far
is.
it's so far in 2020, right? That
It
it's
is.
probably had an outpouring of folks reaching out. And just because we're kind of letting a lot of the Fool into this podcast episode, I'll just say, you mentioned Airtable. I was in a meeting the other day where someone joked, just like, all right, we've said Airtable 3 times, take a drink. Like it's basically like one of the most mentioned platforms internally at the Fool right now, and it has spread
Yeah.
like wildfire because it's so successful.
Yeah, 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 and there are. I mean, admittedly, I'll just So there you go. There's my Airtable shirt. I'm not the only one, by the way, who's been an Airtable evangelist inside of the Fool. I mean, Doug Reel has been a big one, who's on our Blueprint team. Katie Carrera, who's like a power user, of Airtable, and these people are growing up inside the company. When you just see that, it is an indicator that things are going well. So yes, one thing you can do if you don't have access to it, but I would also say, like you could look at those communities, but I would also say you probably have more connections than you do. And it could just be like asking your kid or asking an acquaintance and say, "Hey, do you know anybody who develops software? Like, do you know any software developers?" Like, odds are, or even just ask somebody at your work. The vast majority of software developers are not working at a high tech company in Silicon Valley. They work in middle America, and they're either keeping software or they're developing new software for a company. It could be like a retailer. I mean, seriously, that's the vast majority of developers do that stuff. So you probably know them. You just haven't really engaged with them yet.